Hello everybody, welcome back to Gelvin Valley, Farming Simulator 15. Oh, don't even know what episode number this is. In the last episode, we finished picking up rocks in all of our fields. At least ways I hope we did, because I would just as soon not meet up with any of them during planting, which is kind of what we're doing now. And I'm planting barley. Friend of mine who kind of watched all this series previously and saw that I had put wheat in every single field says, "Why in the world did you do that?" He said it'd be much better to put barley in here, and as we checked in the last episode, barley does command a higher price, so well, that's kind of what I'm planting here. I think maybe I'll try to plant some other stuff too. I don't know. I never know what to plant. I've been treating this as an arable farm in an area where I think I should be raising more cattle or some kind of animal. But I don't know, I tend to gravitate more to arable. I don't know why. So we're going to try to get out of the debt jam that we're in by planting some more crops. This time I'll put some barley in. I think it commands a little bit higher price than wheat. Plus we'll still have the bales, so we'll see. One of these days, I need to do a study on that. I know there's a number of YouTube videos out there where people have tried to figure out which crop gets the highest, best price, if you will, and the best bang for your buck. And I know I've done it in later versions of Farming Sim, and I almost think it was one of the root crops that when I ran the math, dollar for dollar, acre for acre, I almost think it was more you would get from raising, I don't know if it's potatoes or sugar beets, one of the two. But right now I don't have any equipment to do that, and I'm not sure if you can do it in this map. Maybe you can. Yeah, I might be mistaken on that. So maybe I need to do some maths, as they say, to figure out which would be the best that I could grow in here in terms of making a buck. I kind of have to study too the way Wild Wild Wes calculated it into the map, because I know he impacted selling prices and all that, so I kind of have to give the ad a look. Even if I took the highest selling point, which tends to be the same place for a particular crop, even if I took the highest price, I wonder, boy, oh boy, I'm going sideways down the hill. I just wonder which one would garner the top dollar. Ah, no, I don't know if this is fixing my OCD. I know that's a blank spot. I'll get that. Do you guys ever do that? When you're on your fields, do you have to have every square inch of it planted? Um, or when you're fertilizing, if there's just a tiny little bit on a corner that isn't fertilized, you still have to go back and make sure that tiny little bit is covered. Oh, out of the way, sheep. There's our trusty little sheep following us wherever we go. I kind of do that, which is really silly, right? I mean, what's that one little pixel? What difference is it going to make in the total? But still, I like having it all covered. And I'm even worse yet. If I watch someone on YouTube and they don't quite cover it all, it's like, oh, why did they get it all? I think there's something wrong with me. I think my wife would agree with that too, but probably for a different reason. That's a whole nother topic. I'm assuming it's mainly guys that are even watching this, listening to it, let alone that play Farming Sim. I have never been able to get my wife to join me at it. I try to give her all the buzzwords on why I think she would like it. My wife is a lover of teamwork, although kind of what I'm doing in here right now is no teamwork at all. It's just me, myself, and I. But on multiplayer, it's teamwork. I said, look, you like shopping, you can buy stuff, show her the equipment menu. It just doesn't do anything for her. Oh well. Well, I figured I would try to crank out one more episode here before heading to bed tonight. I know the last episode or past couple of episodes I've been talking about how we deal with things in life that are unexpected, and yeah, the last one was kind of a doozy, thinking back on my daughter's seizure, what have you. I don't know, kind of like I mentioned there, it's the negative ones that tend to leave an indelible imprint, although there's positive ones too, which is helpful, or otherwise life would really be tough. Ah, my goodness. It seems I am incapable of driving. Unless I blame it on the slope and this tractor that likes going sideways down the hill. And since I'm recording these long before they will be posted live on YouTube, yeah, I asked for people to share, and I guess I'll see the comments there if anybody cares to share. But for the moment, I mean, the only thing I can think of is just stuff that's happened in my family or in my life, and I don't think I'm abnormal. I mean, I think all of us have a certain mixture of good and bad, that happened to us in life, and I suppose the difference is how any of us choose to deal with whatever situation we're in, and I'll just think it's some more on other surprises, if you will. My mind keeps going to car wrecks, and that's kind of what started this off, with my daughter calling me this evening and telling me that her husband, my son-in-law, that his grandparents just died in a car wreck, and very unexpected, just tragic. Even if, people are, I was going to use the word crass, he's, well, okay, well, they're old people, they lived a life, and they're going to have to go soon anyhow. Well, maybe so, but still don't want to hear they died in a car wreck or whatever. It's just very sudden, maybe didn't have time to say goodbye, just all sorts of reasons why maybe not want it to happen, or whether it feels particularly tragic. But I remember, this has been a long time ago now, more than a decade, where I lost a cousin in a car wreck. He was younger than I was, but I think it happened on a Saturday morning, and I remember my wife running into the room. I was still sleeping. Saturday tends to be my sleeping in day, so although I don't remember how early in the morning it was. Yeah, she just came, the door burst open, which is uncharacteristic of her. She tends to let me sleep in on those days. She's real nice about that. But this morning here, like I say, the door about fell off the hinges. She came in just crying, that my cousin had died in a car wreck that morning. And he was on his way to see his girlfriend, I think. And I've been down the road where it happened, and it's got this broad, sweeping curve, and I have a feeling he had kind of a heavy foot. So he probably was driving plenty fast, but it was a broad, sweeping curve, and it should have, even at a higher speed, and I guess I don't know how fast he was going, But I would think, given that curve, probably even at 70 miles an hour, probably could have handled it okay, but maybe he was going even a lot faster than that. But long story short, he went around the corner, he was in the wrong lane, and I think there was a semi truck coming the other direction and just hit him head on. I think the truck driver lived, was okay, but my cousin unfortunately didn't. And and just tragic, his uncle is one of just a fun man to be around. He's the one that had I can't remember if I mentioned it before. He used to raise hogs. I think at the time he still did. You don't see very many hog farms in Oregon. It's uneconomical to do. But I've just always enjoyed being around him. He's a special man, and this was his son. And I can just about imagine, well, I guess I can't imagine, what it would be like to get the call. Here, and I think I remember hearing him describe it, just a normal morning like anything else. Uh, they probably had breakfast or something. His son was, how old was he at the time? I kind of think he might have been out of school. He was training to be a firefighter. I think that's a career path he wanted to take, so he was very gung-ho about all that. Um, so, but yeah, just, I mean, a random morning, heading off, and I gotta say, we have lots of those. Every family has those. Every day, like this summer, both of my boys head off. One's younger, so he doesn't head off. Someone picks him up, or my wife takes him. Um, as I head to work, she handles taking care of them, to take them to their summer jobs, so they can work. And my older son drives, but something like this can happen to them. Just a random morning, and maybe rushed, maybe you don't even see him. All depends on the morning. One of my boys gets up. Actually, both of them now, they get up pretty early, earlier than their old man. So a lot of times they're out of the house, and I don't even see them. They work on farms, and one of them works for an apiary, so the hours are earlier than I do in my office job. But yeah, just on those random mornings, kind of like we've been talking, that's when the unexpected can happen, and life-changing stuff. And I have so many cousins. I think in previous videos I've shared that I come from a very large family. Half of my cousins, maybe half of them, live in the Midwest somewhere, and a lot of them I don't even know very well. I know a couple of them very well, that I worked with on the Lone Oak Farm, but there's a good lot of them I don't know very well at all. And even the ones out here, there's quite an age range between, I'm one of the older cousins in my grandfather's family, and the youngest are, well, let's see here. I don't know if there's any under 10 years old still, but I know there's some who are between 10 and 20. So I'm 47, so to all of them, I'm an old man. And to me, they're little chirps. So a lot of them, I haven't built much in terms of a way of relationship. We're just in different places in life, which is fine. So like this cousin here, I'm trying to remember, he was just getting out of high school. I was already married, had several kids, so we were in different areas too. But it was one of those things, that just slugs you right in the guts, to where, I guess what it showed me is just how little I knew some of my own flesh and blood, if you will. I didn't know very well, and as is typical, when someone passes or when a tragedy happens, there's all kinds of things that come out of the woodwork, to where I really wished I would have had a more of a relationship with this particular cousin. I mean, he was a pretty nice guy, and just seeing kind of what some of his hopes and dreams were, and but some of that's part of life. I mean, you can't know every person the best, and stuff just happens. What can you say? But I do wonder kind of what would have happened. His family, they hold together. He's still very well remembered. I think online, I mean, if you look hard enough, you can still pull up his MySpace portfolio or whatever was on their profile. MySpace. Remember MySpace? Kind of predated Facebook. That gives you some idea of when he passed. Um, so I don't even think MySpace is around anymore. But it could have been what Facebook is now. Um, but something happened. Unexpected things. So I mentioned I was thinking of car wrecks, and that made me think of my own. I Have you guys ever been in a wreck? I don't know, maybe I don't want to call it a rite of passage. I've been in one car wreck, and I hope that means I'm set for life. I don't need to be in another one ever again. Now, one of my daughters has been in several fender benders, and one of which, involved turning the car cartwheels several times. That was another unexpected thing to get one of those phone calls, kind of almost like the phone call I had tonight, where you get a call and you can almost tell immediately that something is wrong, something is different, just in how the person, in this case my daughter, how they say hello, to where it's like, oh, there's a reason you're calling, and we're going to get right to it. There's going to be no chit chat because something very serious has happened. And I still remember getting a call from her when she crashed her car. It was pretty close to home. I mean, she was within half a mile of home, and she, like I say, she doesn't know how many times she turned the car. What it was is we have the country road we're on. It has no shoulder, and if you get your tire off the edge and then you try to correct it to get back on the road, you got to be really, really careful because there's a deep ditch there, kind of like the ditches on this map, incidentally. So she overcorrected, and the tire gripped the road just right and flipped the car. She ended up landing in a ditch, got pounded by the airbag, the whole 9 yards, and completely totaled the car. But I still remember when she called, just kind of the subdued tone or whatever that she has, like you knew immediately something was wrong. And so it was a short drive to go find it. Dealing with the unexpected. Now, my own car crash, which was also unexpected, that happened in the fall of 14, I think. So I live probably, I think it's just under 5 miles from where I work. So we live kind of in the suburbs, and each morning, I head in on some country roads. There's 1, 2, 3 traffic lights that I could go through before I get to the office. Pretty simple, pretty plain Jane, right? Well, the middle light that I could go through is kind of a somewhat major thoroughfare, if you will. And at the time, I had a little red car, little Ford Contour, just a 4-cylinder middle car. And it had been a good car. I had had it for almost 20 years. Ever since college. I got it brand new. Coming out of college, they had a special deal for college kids where they had reduced interest rates. They gave me some discounts on it. I mean, I think the thing cost, I mean, it seems unreal that a car would cost this much now, but it was like $12,500, just a cheap car, and it lasted. It was a good one. Never had much mechanical difficulty, of course, until I crashed it, and didn't have much good mechanics at that point. But just a good car, but a small car. Stick shift, um, a good little starter car, if you will. So it had taken me, I had worked a number of years in Portland, and I was still using it here at home. I think my father had even tried to get me to get a different car, and I was just balking. You know, it's like when you have a good, I'm not a car person, so when you have a decent car, at least for me, it works and it's paid for. I mean, why would I want to get into debt and get another car? At least that's kind of what my reasoning was. But obviously, after I totaled it in a wreck, I had no choice. But it was early one morning when I was headed into work, and by early, it was, oh goodness, was it like 4:15 in the morning? It was, I don't know why I was heading in so early, um, but it was. So I'm headed in there, and I get behind a slow person. This person was in a Suburban, an SUV, I think it was a Suburban, and they were just putzing. Maybe I'll go on the other gate, it's a little bit wider. And I gotta say, that's kind of an irritant to me as a driver when someone, I mean, it's already slow driving, it's 35 miles an hour, and that's your road. It's like, come on, pick up the pace. It's early morning, there's nobody on this road. For goodness sakes, you know, can you move? 35 miles an hour, and I seem to recollect they were going 20 or under. So they were just putzing. We'll put barley in this field too. So finally we get to the second light, and they pull off. There's two lanes there, so they pull into the left-hand lane because I think they were going to turn. And it's like, finally, they get out of the way. I look ahead, the light is green, so I stomp on the throttle to get up to speed, and I head out into the intersection. And I have this memory that even this early morning there was a car sitting at the intersection on the road that I was traveling on. I was on the left lane. The Suburban that was just ahead of me moved over into the left-hand turn lane, so they were in the far left, and this other car was in the right lane, sitting at the intersection. And I remember having this thought, oh man, look at the app. He hasn't even woke up. It's morning, the light's green, doesn't even know it's green. Why doesn't he move? Well, well, well. There was a very good reason that he wasn't moving, in which I very quickly found out because when I got into the intersection, I T-boned a car that was coming through the other way. And not just any car either. This was a police officer. Uh, a lady police officer. I sure hope I haven't told this story before. I don't think I have. She was coming through the other way. She had her lights on, but she didn't have her siren on. Well, I was behind this Suburban, and my car was small enough. I didn't see that someone was coming into the intersection, coming from the other way. Well, the guy at the intersection saw that there was a police car coming through, that they were breaking a red light coming from their way. She had her lights on, but she didn't have her sirens on. So I couldn't see her, and I couldn't hear her. And like I say, when I got around this Suburban, I stomped on the accelerator and met with force in the intersection when I ran the police officer that was there. And wow, was that a surprise. Kind of the whole theme here. And frankly, the fact that it was such a surprise is, I think, what kept me from having a lot more injuries than I would have had. I've heard, you know, the whiplash and whatever when you crash a car. that a lot of times it's if you see it coming, you tense up somehow, and then after the accident you can have a lot of, well, I don't know what the medical term for it is, but when you tense up and see it coming, your injuries are worse after going through that. I mean, I've heard before, some of the irony is like a drunk driver, one of the reasons they live a lot of times through the crashes, if they're completely soused and they crash into a car, they may kill the other guy, but they themselves live. So one of those huge injustices of life. But part of the reason is because they're all relaxed from the effect of the alcohol. Well, I didn't have any alcohol in my system, of course, but it was totally unexpected. I did not know that there would be a car in the intersection when I went in there, and so boom, I'm just right in the intersection, and wham, I hit this cop car. Totally caught me off guard. Probably got them off guard too. Just hit it right smack in the center, basically. I don't think it was totally on the front passenger door of the cop car. I think it took out both doors. So what it did to my car, I have a distinct memory of this, is it spun me around in a circle, and I still remember the feeling of getting turned around in a circle. I think I probably yelled in surprise. Um, what I didn't know at the time is that the airbag went off in the car, beat the living daylights out of my chest. I would figure that out later. Felt like I had played tackle football with an entire team, and they took turns tackling me for a month. That just hurt like fire, to go through that. But it spun me around in the intersection, and there we sat. And one of the funny things, if there is anything funny about a wreck, is my horn got stuck. I hadn't pressed it, but I guess something damaged in the electronics, something shorted out. So there I sat in this intersection, the horn going beep, just sitting there. And after a while, it's like, shut up, it's like it was just noisy and nasty. And it took until the fire department arrived, and one of them, opened up the hood of the car, and I think they cut a battery cable or something to get the car to shut up. But fortunately, my door still worked just fine, so I got out of there. And it's like I was spooked at that point. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if the car was going to start on fire or anything like that, and that didn't happen, of course. But my whole front end was munched. The cop car, the whole side of it was damaged. So I went running over the cop car, and that's where I realized it was a lady cop that I hit, and she instructed me to sit down. And here's the weird thing. What I never thought of at the time is, it's like, here I'm in this wreck, and I've damaged my car, but what I didn't recognize at the time was what I had just done to her. And if I was feeling a little bit of shock or out of sorts, she also would have been feeling the same thing. But I gotta say, as a professional, I think she handled it way better than what I did. And what I didn't know at the time too is that she had a passenger, another police officer, and this fella, this was a man. I think he was a training officer. This lady cop was undergoing training, and he was her supervisor, and he had just taken the brunt of the blow, from my car. I mean, he probably saw me coming and everything, and then had to feel the crunch of the car ramming, right into his right side. So I can't imagine he had a real good time of it, to be honest. So, I mean, the emergency folks came, the whole intersection was walled off. I think I retrieved my computer out of the car. They asked if, I wanted to ride an ambulance to the hospital. No, I didn't even want to go to the hospital. I wanted to go to work. I think there was some project I was working on and that needed my attention, but they insisted that I go to the hospital to be checked out medically. So I think finally the police officer hauled me down there, just kind of gave me a ride, if you will. And at the time, I think I borrowed his cell phone to call my wife. Or maybe I did that on the street. I think maybe then I called the office and let them know what had happened, that I'd be late getting to work, all that. Well, several times I had to tell the story of how I ended up in the car wreck. And the cop, I guess this is something to remember if you're ever around police officers and something like this happens. I had just rammed into probably two friends to this particular officer, and he was listening to me as I told my story and as to how it happened. And he told me later, not only when I was in the car and calling people, but also when I was in the hospital, when I was explaining to the doctor, nurse, whoever it was that looked me over what had happened. I think I called someone else, explained what happened. He was sitting outside my door, and I didn't know he was sitting out there listening to what I was telling people. And he told me later that my story was consistent. So I don't know if he was thinking I would lie about what happened. I got to tell you, I was pretty scared. Hitting a police officer, I just assumed I was in deep trouble. And later, I think they asked for my cell phone. They probably wanted to see if I was texting, um, which I wasn't. So, I mean, I just gave it to them. I think technically they would have to subpoena it. But it's like I didn't have anything to hide. And I still remember, like, when I was on the street in the intersection, waiting for emergency personnel to show up. There's someone showed up. They asked me if I knew what day it was, if I knew who the president was. Um, there were several other people that were eyewitnesses. Even at that early hour in the morning, there was people walking around. Oh yeah, I saw the whole thing. Well, yeah. So I don't know if that helped or hurt. I really don't know. But the and then going into the emergency room, the cop that I'd ran into, the lady cop, she was brought in on a stretcher. And this is the closest I've ever felt to, she was all laid out on it. Her eyes were shut. I didn't know she was knocked out. It's like, what in the world? The last I saw her, she was up walking around. She had let me borrow her cell phone to make a call, you know, and then now all of a sudden she's horizontal, and she's hurt. And it's like, my goodness, I killed somebody? I mean, that thought went through my mind, and it wasn't a very comfortable thought at all. And it was in the hospital too when I learned that she had a passenger. I didn't know that back at the intersection, but there was that she had a passenger, and I couldn't see her. My I think they gave me a tetanus shot, but I had no broken bones. So eventually, after looking me over, doing whatever they did, the hospital sent me home, and someone came and picked me up at the hospital to take me to work, basically. So I went to work the rest of the day. And I gotta say, the pain only increased into the day as I realized what had slammed into my chest, with the airbag and what have you. But before leaving the hospital, I don't know where she disappeared to, um, but that's when I learned that she had a passenger. I asked what room he was in, and somebody told me, and I went over there to see him, and um, I shook his hand. I was kind of scared to do it. He had like 5 or 6, probably his friends, other police officers in the room with him, and I went in there and just to talk to him a little bit. I think I asked him if he'd mind if I prayed with him, which we did, and then I left the room, and my ride came and picked me up, and I headed to the office. And I think at some point my wife came to the office to meet up with me, and I think she was there when the police officers visited the office too. There was a couple of cops that stopped by, They brought me my cell phone back. I think they looked at it and they realized it didn't have, anything of anything they could hold against me on it. And so they gave it back to me, and then they left. And I remember just sitting there talking to my wife, and part of me is just, feeling kind of the, anxiety, if you will. It's like, what's going to happen here? This major wreck just happened, and, I ruined a cop car belonging to the city. We got insurance matters to deal with. Would I now be prosecuted by these police officers for some kind of harm or whatever? And so, just while we're kind of sitting there thinking about it, my wife and I visiting, these police officers who had just come through um, and dropped off my cell phone, they returned. They came back to the office, and they said, "You know what, Ann?" They said, "We want you to know that you're going to be okay. We're not going to press charges or anything like that." I think they just told that to me straight out. I honestly don't know why they did that. To this day, I don't know why they did that. I think I've heard if you're in Rex, the insurance company, they don't want you admitting guilt. They don't want you telling anything or talking to the other guy overly much that you hit. The insurance companies will figure all that out in court or whatever they need to, but they don't want you doing it, something that would damage your case. So, for the life of me, I don't know why these two officers chose to return to the office and just reassure me um, that nothing was going to happen. And I got to say, nothing ever did. Um, I think there was an investigation done internally, and from what I heard later is this trainee police officer, the lady that I ran into, she was supposed to have her sirens on, and she didn't. And that's probably, apparently, with whatever footage they had from the cop car itself and from eyewitness accounts, um, they they were in the wrong, if you will. And looking back, I I wonder if I had been paying better attention. Kind of like the guy that was sitting at the intersection. He obviously saw what was coming. So even though the light was green, he wasn't going to go out into the intersection because he saw the cop car coming. Well, if I had had my wits about me, and I'd like to believe if this situation ever happens again, that I'll know better. If you ever see someone sitting at a green light at an intersection, there's probably a reason. Maybe they're asleep, maybe they're not paying attention, but boy, if you see that coming, I'm gonna slow down and take it easy going through that intersection, because there very well could be a car coming the other direction that you don't want to meet up with. So I've had a number of interactions with police officers over the years with tickets and what have you, and I know I shared all that kind of in a previous episode. Oh, it looks like I missed a spot. So I won't belabor all that here. This one here, probably the worst one of all, they took all the blame, if you will, all the responsibility, um, and paid the cost, of my health care, if you will, for going through that. A lot of the insurance costs dealing with the wreck and what have you. So I don't know. Some interactions with the police, I wouldn't call this a pleasant one. Um, it certainly turned out a whole lot better than I ever imagined it could have. And like I say, just going back to kind of the theme I've talked about this evening, when the unexpected happens, that's now, I guess that's, what is that now, 8 years ago? What are we, 2022? So, still not even a decade old. Just one of those things. Certainly didn't wake up in the morning planning on meeting a cop in the intersection, but that's kind of exactly what happened. So how about you? I'll get off of this kick, and I need to get to bed anyhow. Shoot, it's way near 3 a.m., I think. But I just got woke up by my daughter when she called. What about you? What unexpected things have happened in your life that you've had to deal with, and how did you do? How did you deal with it? Well, with that, I'm gonna call the video here. Thank you for watching, for spending a little time here. Hopefully, I haven't bored anybody too bad. Wish you all a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.